The Phillies made a flurry of moves at the trade deadline. I'll break down what they could mean for the team moving forward. Also, the Phillies are rolling and are winners of 8 of their last 9. They are 10 games over 500. This episode of the Philly Sports Spot YouTube channel starts right now. What's going on, everybody, and welcome into this edition of the Philly Sports Spot YouTube channel. I am your host, Jordan Hirsch, and now, guys, before we get into this video, please make sure you like this video and subscribe to my channel with notifications turned on so you never miss another upload. You guys can also follow me on Instagram. The link will be in the description below. So let's get right into talking about the busy trade deadline day that the Phillies had this past Tuesday. They made 3 moves, all within a couple hours of each other. The first one they made was acquiring a center fielder, getting Brandon Marsh from the Los Angeles Angels for the top catching prospect in our farm system, Logan O'Hoppe. I've definitely seen a lot of mixed reactions on this trade. I kind of like it right now. I mean, I understand that Brandon Marsh is not the best hitter, but I mean, it's still got to be better than Odubel, right? And even if he doesn't really hit right now, his defense and speed are outstanding. He's one of the best defenders in the league. He's also one of the fastest players in the league. And in the Phillies right now, they really never had a speed guy on this team, really the entire season. Of course, they had Roman Quinn for about a month, but that really never turned into anything. But even so, they've been stealing bases at a very good rate, very high amount of stolen bases for this team, and Brandon Marsh to really only add to that. I think it's a pretty good trade all in all. Of course, Logan O'Hoppe, he would have been blocked by JT Realmuto for at least the next 2 or 3 years anyways. Phillies also have Rafael Marchand in their system, Sands in their system. They've got catching prospects in their system. I think it probably was the right move to try to move O'Hoppe. Sure, maybe it would have been nice to go out and get perhaps a bigger name for a player like him, but Brandon Marsh really could potentially turn into that big name. Dave Dombrowski did say that he sees a potential future all-star in Brandon Marsh, and the Phillies do have him now for the next 5.5 years, so he's going to be the center fielder of the future, at least right now as it sets up for the Phillies. And in those 5.5 years, he's going to get a chance to work with one of the best hitting coaches in the league, I believe, in Kevin Long. So his offense really could make a turnaround while he's here. Of course, he's hitting below 230 this season, so not that good. He strikes out about 36% of the time. It's one of the tops in the league. But that is something that definitely can be changed over the next 5.5 years. He's still a very young player, still kind of adjusting to the major league level. And he did play really well for the Angels last season, too. I think a lot of people forget that he's kind of fallen off a little bit this year. So it very well could be a sophomore slump. I mean, I think we kind of see we went and saw Alec Boehm kind of have that sophomore slump last season. He has certainly turned it around. I really don't think that the offense, at least right now for Brandon Marsh, should be too much of a concern. Phillies also made another deal with those Angels, acquiring right-handed pitcher Noah Syndergaard for Mickey Moniak, finally, and outfielder Jadiel Sanchez, 2 minor league prospects there for the Phillies. Syndergaard is a rental. He's on a 1-year, $21 million deal. But I do think that, again, probably another good trade made by Dave Dombrowski at the trade deadline. Usually he doesn't like rentals, but he did go after one. Here, of course, Noah Syndergaard, he looked a little shaky in his first outing on Thursday, giving up 4 earned runs and 11 hits. However, he hadn't pitched in 9 days, and a lot of the hits that he gave up were soft contact. I mean, even that one hard contact one, the single by Luke Voigt off the right field wall in the 5th inning there. I mean, the wind really did carry that. I think, and I don't think really anybody thought that ball was going to be able to get all the way out to the wall there. But the wind really did take that one. But yeah, so a lot of soft contact given up by Noah Syndergaard. And if that was his rusty, if that was his nervousness moving to a team that's now moving from a team that's not a contender to a team that is a contender, especially after having not pitched in 9 days, and that was probably the first time he's ever worked with JT Realmuto. If that was his worst, I think the Phillies really did get themselves a quality third starter in this rotation. And finally, the last trade that the Phillies made during the trade deadline was acquiring right-handed reliever and former Philly David Robertson from the Chicago Cubs for Ben Brown, another top pitching prospect for us. And Ben Brown was really reported to be on that untouchable list for the Phillies, at least according to Jason Stark. But so was Logan O'Hoppe, and the Phillies actually then ended up trading 2 of those guys that were on that untouchable list. But anyway, so David Robertson, he has been absolutely electric this year. His ERA is down near 2, and he came in and closed out the game, the win on Wednesday against Atlanta in a game that the Phillies really needed. I'll get into that game a little bit later on. But yeah, I think David Robertson, so he's on a 1-year, $3.5 million deal. He's got $1.5 million more in incentives, so it could go up to $5 million. But, I mean, I really do think that he's going to be just another guy that Rob Thompson is going to match up, just like he's done with Dominguez and Hand and Alvarado and Brogdon. I mean, David Robertson, we saw that he came in, he closed out the game on Wednesday. I think he definitely could be this team's closer, maybe if Dominguez or Hand need a day off. He also could come in maybe in the 6th, 7th inning, just depending on the matchups, really. I mean, he could be seriously anywhere from the 6th inning to the closer. He could also maybe be that guy that comes in extra innings that the Phillies have already used, maybe 3 or 4 of their other back-end relievers. So I do think this is a really good pickup by the Phillies, acquiring David Robertson from Chicago. And those were just all of the trades that the Phillies made. Of course, they were not done making moves. I think the biggest one was the fact that they released shortstop Didi Gregorius. I mean, it really is just a shame that he never really was able to pan out here in Philly. It would have been nice to see him get that 1,000th hit as a member of the Phillies. Of course, he's at 999 right now. But, I mean, there was really just no need to keep him. You have Maton, who just got called back up, actually, yesterday. You've got now Munoz in the minors, Camargo in the minors. You just traded for Edmundo Sosa. There really was no room for Didi Gregorius on this roster. I'm sure a team will pick him up on the waiver wire. He is still probably a valuable piece, and it could be a playoff team that picks him up, just maybe as a backup. Because he could really be a valuable piece still. He does have pop. He really never showcased that much with the Phillies. But, I mean, of course, we all saw it when he was with the Yankees, and he could be a valuable asset to a team that is contending. Phillies also got Jean Segura back from the 60-day IL on Thursday. He had been out with that broken finger since May 31st. And he comes back, and the Phillies have yet to lose now with him in the lineup, and he kind of looks like he's fit right back in. Of course, he doesn't have a hit yet in these last 2 games, but he's hit some balls hard, and he's made all the defensive plays that he needs to. I think it probably will take maybe 30, 40, 50 at-bats just for him to get back in the swing of things. He did say that he felt that his timing was still a little bit off, even after having the 20 rehab at-bats down in the minor leagues. So yeah, I do think it's going to be a little bit of time before we see the hit machine of Jean Segura again. But he is another big piece for this Phillies team to get back. And also because of all of the moves that the Phillies did make on the trade deadline day, they did DFA Jarius Familia and Odubel Herrera, and rightfully so for both of those guys. They had been absolutely awful with this team this season, especially Familia, who almost blew 2 games in that series against the Pirates this past weekend. So he gets DFA'd, Odubel DFA'd, and the Phillies really now have their team set, I think, moving forward, for the exception of one guy, and that is Bryce Harper, who had the pins removed from his thumb on Monday. Reports are now that he is just 2 to 3 weeks away, potentially, from returning to this team. And how big of a player could he be to get back? I mean, it would be the biggest trade to, of course, acquire that MVP-level talent again. If he comes busting through the door now with the Phillies, right in the thick of this playoff race, tied with the Brewers and the Cardinals for that final wildcard spot, but then you get Bryce Harper busting through the doors with maybe 7 weeks to go. I mean, this really could set up for a very, very exciting finish to this season. Hopefully Harper will be back in that 2 to 3 week time frame, which could be one of those Reds or Mets series, maybe one of the second Reds or Mets series, which occurs the 3rd week of August. I mean, the way the team's going, even if he's just maybe 75, 80% of his MVP level self, he would still be a huge, huge addition to the middle of this lineup. Alright, so switching gears a little bit now into this Phillies week in review. They went 5-1 this week, a very productive week for the Phillies. They finished off that Pittsburgh series by winning the last 2 games and sweeping the Pirates. They were then off on Monday, headed down to Atlanta, where they got absolutely demolished, 13-1 on Tuesday. They got Spencer Stridered, and the bullpen game did not pan out well for the Phillies. But they bounced right back Wednesday, and through the first 7 innings of that game on Wednesday, they looked awful. It looked like it might be the worst loss of the season. Of course, Zach Wheeler was dealing, but the offense was flailing at everything. A lot of swing and misses, a lot of strikeouts at pitches outside the zone. But, I mean, hey, give them credit. JT Realmuto busting out that fielder's choice in the 8th inning to tie the game. And then Nick Castellanos going deep as the very next batter. Phillies take that 3-1 lead, and the bullpen shuts it down. Phillies then, of course, have that rain-shortened game on Thursday, and thanks to the rain, the Phillies get that win 5-4 in 5 innings, and that Nick Castellanos play, when he threw the runner out at the plate to end that 5th inning, proved to be the game winner. Phillies then yesterday pound 5 home runs, one by JT Realmuto, one by Rhys Hoskins, Derek Hall got in on it, Kyle Schwarber, and Nick Castellanos, who's now homered in 2 of his last 3 games. He could be heating up, and how big of an addition would that be if we can get Nick Castellanos hot? But the 5 home runs last night weren't even the main story of the game, as Kyle Gibson was dealing. He went perfect game through 6 innings. Of course, then hit Victor Robles to start the 7th. That ended the perfect game, and then gave up the single to Luis Garcia as the very next batter, which ended the no-hitter. But he still goes 8 innings, only gives up the 1 earned run. A fantastic outing by Kyle Gibson. And if he can look like that the rest of the season, this team should be just fine. And now into this first ever Philly Sports Spot edition of the Philly Sports Week Ahead. Not just the Phillies Week Ahead, as I'm sure you guys all know. And if you don't know, you will find out here in a minute. But let's start off with tonight's game. The Phillies will finish out the series tonight and tomorrow against the Washington Nationals. Tonight's game is at 6:05 with a little asterisk next to it since it is Wall of Fame night. Phillies will be inducting Ron Reed and Bake McBride into the Wall of Fame. And of course, Wall of Fame night never really starts on time, so scheduled time is 6:05. I'd probably look for the game to start around maybe 6:20, 6:30. The Phillies will then start on time tomorrow at 1:35 against the Nationals. Both these games against the Nationals are going to be on NBC Sports Philadelphia. They are then off Monday and then host the Marlins for 3. It's Tuesday's game and Wednesday's game, both at 7:05 on NBC Sports Philadelphia. And Thursday's game is at 1:05 NBC Sports Philadelphia. And then on Friday, we've got 2 games. Let's start it out with the Phillies. They will be up in New York at 7:10 to take on the Mets. That game is on Apple TV+. And then at 7:30 at the Link, the Eagles will kick off their preseason schedule against the New York Jets. That game is on NBC 10 again at 7:30. So Eagles, Jets, and Phillies, Mets. A couple of some Philadelphia, New York games going on Friday. The Phillies will then finish out the series against the Mets on Saturday and Sunday. Saturday's game is at 7:10 on NBC 10, and then Sunday's game is at 1:40 back on NBC Sports Philadelphia. And finally this week, the Sixers release their preseason schedule, which will tip off on October 3rd in Brooklyn against the Nets. The Sixers will then have their first preseason home game 2 nights later, October 5th, against the Cavaliers. They will then travel to Cleveland October 10th to play the Cavs, and then return back home for their final preseason game on October 12th against the Hornets. Alright, and that is going to wrap things up for this edition of the Philly Sports Spot YouTube channel. Again, guys, make sure you like this video and subscribe to my channel with notifications turned on so you never miss another upload. I post every Saturday. You could also follow me on Instagram. The link will be down in the description below. You could also look me up. It's at Philly Sports Spot. That's PhillySportSpot, so just one S between sport and spot. But until next weekend, have a good week, everybody, and let's go Phillies and fly, Eagles, fly!